Hello, everyone. Sue.oneschuk back here again to continue the lessons of A Course in Miracles. And today we are on lesson 71. So the lesson is only God's plan for salvation will work. You may not realize that the ego has set up a plan for salvation in opposition to God's. And I'll say in competition with God. It is this plan in which you believe. You believe more in the ego and the illusion than in God and love. That's, even still at this point, look at that for yourself. And we'll be looking at that throughout this lesson. Since it is the opposite of God, you also believe that to accept God's plan in place of the ego's is to be damned. That sounds preposterous, of course. Yet, after we have considered just what the ego's plan is, we're going to be looking at that even more deeply today. Perhaps you'll realize that however preposterous it may be, you do believe in it. The ego's plan for salvation centers around holding grievances. Again, we've been, in the last several lessons there has been addressing grievances. So, again, still take a look at where are you holding grievances? Where are you holding complaints? Where are you blaming? It says it maintains that. The ego maintains that, holding grievances. If someone else spoke or acted differently, if some circumstances or event were changed, you would be saved. That's what the ego is saying. Thus, the source of salvation is constantly perceived as outside yourself. This is an inward journey here, doing the Course in Miracles and doing the lessons. And it says, each grievance you hold is a declaration and an assertion in which you believe that says, if this were different, I would be saved. Again, it's looking at the external. The change of mind necessary for salvation is thus demanded of everyone in everything except yourself. We're looking outside of ourselves constantly. And the work here is going inward. The role assigned to your own mind is this plan, then. I'm going to say that again. The role assigned to your mind in this plan, then, is simply to determine what, other than itself, must change if you're to be saved. According to this insane plan, any perceived source of salvation is acceptable, provided that it will not work. This ensures that the fruitless search will continue, for the illusion persists that. It persists that continual search. Although this hope has always failed, there is still grounds for hope in other places and in other things. To keep hoping. Another person will yet serve better, or another situation will yet offer success. Keep on searching for that next best thing. Although the Course is always saying there's a better way, which will, again, the better way is Christ's vision. Such is the ego's plan for your salvation. Surely you can see how it is in strict accord with the ego's basic doctrine. Seek, but do not find. Just notice with the ego how often you've been seeking, you still have not found. You've still not found that love, that inner peace that is lasting. For what could more surely guarantee that you will not find salvation than to channelize all your efforts in searching for where it is not? Wow, just think of how much energy is put into seeking for what is not. God's plan for salvation works simply because by following his direction, you seek for salvation where it is. But if you are to succeed as God promises you will, do you have the faith and trust in that? You must be willing to seek there only. Otherwise, your purpose is divided. and you will attempt to follow two plans for salvation that are diametrically opposed in all ways. These results can only bring confusion, misery, and a deep sense of failure and despair. Take a look. Take a look. Where are you finding yourself over and over again in confusion, in misery, in suffering, in pain? And it says here as well, deep sense of failure and despair. Be brutally honest with yourself. How can you escape all this? Very simply. The idea for today is the answer. Only God's plan for salvation will work. There can be no real conflict about this because there is no possible alternative to God's plan that will save you. Are you really willing to take on God's plan for salvation? His is the only plan that is certain in its outcome. His is the only plan that will succeed. Have you really, again, experienced God's plan for salvation? If you're doing this lesson or doing this course, you're still searching for what that plan is. And, the lessons in the course give us the answer. But are we willing to hear the answer? Are we willing to listen? Let us practice recognizing this certainty today, and let us rejoice that there is an answer to what seems to be a conflict with no resolution possible. All things are possible to God. All things are possible to God, with God. Salvation must be yours because of his plan, which cannot fail. God's plan cannot fail. And it says, begin the 2 practice periods for today by thinking about today's idea and realizing that it contains 2 parts, each making equal contribution to the whole. Now, the first part is God's plan for salvation will work. And number 2 is other plans will not. It says, do not allow yourself to become depressed or angry at the second part. It's inherent in the first, which is, again, God's plan for salvation will work. It's what you're looking for, you're searching for right now, possibly, is God's plan, not the other plans. The other plans have not been working. And in the first is your real release from all your insane attempts and mad proposals to free yourself. There's an expression out there, insanity is doing the same old, and expecting different results. So, again, it says, and in the first is your full release from all your insane attempts and mad proposals to free yourself. They have led to depression and anger, but God's plan will succeed. It will lead to release and joy. You release all these egoic plans, egoic thoughts, all these grievances, all this despair and failure. You'll release all that. And there's where you will find your joy. Remembering this, let us devote the remainder of the extended practice periods to asking God to reveal his plan to us and ask him very specifically. Now, these next 3 lines that I'm going to read to you is something that I bring myself to very often, and as much as possible, I still practice, looking or speaking these words on a day-to-day basis, which is, what would you have me do? Where would you have me go? And what would you have me say, and to who? Very powerful 3 lines. I really suggest that, you copy them somewhere and reflect on that on a daily basis. So it says, give him full charge of the rest of the practice period and let him tell you what needs to be done by you in his plan for your salvation. It said, let him tell you what needs to be done, not the ego. The ego, again, is going to leave you in very unclear and in confusion and in chaos and in striving and in stress, because we're, in the ego thought system, we are looking for something outside of ourselves, chasing our tail around, really, really looking at that. Just a little aside here. I had a dog once that, maybe both my dogs, they used to, you ever seen a dog chase their tail? I took a look at that and asked myself, where am I chasing my tail? Just, an outward reflection, to look into space and then to start asking the questions. So it said, he will answer in proportion to your willingness to hear his voice. And it says, refuse not to hear. Where are you resisting the hearing of God's voice, of hearing what it is that the Holy Spirit is offering to connect us to God? Because again, we believe we're separated. The very fact that you are doing the exercises proves that you have some willingness to listen. Give yourself some credit and acknowledgement that you have this book in your hand and you are doing this lesson in this moment. This is enough to establish your claim to God's answer. You've already set it forward by being here and listening to this and reading this and practicing this lesson. In the shorter practice periods, tell yourself often that God's plan for salvation and only his will work. Be alert to all temptation to hold grievances today. Whenever you look at that, be, as much as possible, consciously aware. If you're out of your peace, you're in your grievance of sorts. And then respond to them with the form of today's idea. Holding grievances, which are complaints, blame, judgment. Holding grievances is the opposite of God's plan for salvation. And only his plan will work. It says, try to remember today's idea some 6 or 7 times an hour. And let me see. And it says that there could be no better way to spend a half minute or less to remember the source of your salvation and to see it where it is. And you might ask again, those 3 lines. What is it you would have me do? Where would you have me go? And what would you have me say and to who? Again, it's time to quit chasing our tail around the planet. And as you continue to do this work, you're going to find, you're going to no longer want to do that. It's yours or our separation from all that is. It's from all the love that has yours and my temptation in the world, and that we've placed it there. We need to take responsibility and accountability. We've placed those temptations there, and then they have disconnected us from all that is. In other words, we've created, as I said, these temptations that distract us, that blind us from all that is possible. With God, all things again are possible, and it distracts us from all the love that is possible. So separation, also being in the separation and believing again that we're separated from God and keeping from turning whatever over to the Holy Spirit. It keeps us from guidance from the Holy Spirit, from our holy self. It distracts us. So, you want to ask yourself, is whatever it is showing up right now in my life, is it contributing to my life? Or ask yourself, is it a distraction, keeping me from what is truly my true heart's calling? You might ask, what is the feeling that is causing me to soothe myself? What are the idols? What are keeping me from truth of who I am as a child of God? So let me see. I made some further notes here, so I'll be reflecting on them. This is just such an important lesson. Again, that it's only God's plan for salvation that'll work. And again, I might be repeating some of this here, but it's important to repeat and for this all to, to come together for us. And, God's plan for salvation, it means that, we can let go of all our planning, all our conniving, all our manipulating, all our controlling and efforting to try to make circumstances in which I feel safe and happy. We're trying to force these outcomes. And it says here again, it's reminding us that in accepting God's plan is to remember that his will, God's will, is perfect happiness. It's not temporary. It's not partial, but it's perfect. It's complete. It's whole and complete. It's eternal happiness. That's what's available for us as we follow God's plan. Again, as I said earlier, it's not those things that soothe us for the moment, like, finding comfort in eating. I call it, what is it? Comfort food, going for the comfort food versus dealing, with the agitation or the trigger or the feelings of lack or depression. There may be many other idols, what's out there in the world, retail therapy. That doesn't mean that you don't eat. It doesn't mean that you don't go and enjoy things. But when are we putting those in place of actually releasing those agitations to the Holy Spirit to find our peace through our holy self? So it says again, the ego world is the result of believing that it is possible to have something better than God's plan for perfect happiness. Again, the ego is in competition with God. Just take a look. And in rejecting God's plan for total love and happiness for all, we reject. I'm going to restate that. It's, when we're into the egoic thought system, we are rejecting God's plan for total love and happiness for all of us, for all, to be in the unity and the oneness. The unity and the oneness is always available to us. The ego thought system represents, I want to do it my way. And, the I in the ego says, I can do it better and I can do it on my own. So we want to ask ourselves, has doing it my way not brought the happiness you want? Or put it this way, doing it my way has not brought me the happiness that I really want. So, it is about letting go again of our plans and receiving the perfect happiness offered by God's plan for salvation. Being open to receive God's plan for salvation. We only can do that when we're in a space of clarity, when we are letting go of what it is that we think that we know how things could or should go. Being open for that direction from our holy self. And we're exploring within these lessons, what is our holy self? So when we ask for God's plan for salvation, the sight of Christ is all that we see. When we ask for that, when we're truly asking for it, the vision of Christ of love and beauty and peace and joy. And there's no journey but to walk with God. And as we see past the bodies, the Course tells us we're not a body. We are free. We are as God created each one of us. So again, as we see past the bodies to Christ, we're doing our part in salvation. We are in this process retraining ourselves from focusing on bodies and focusing on our body to see the Christ vision. Again, because Christ is all there is to see. That is God's plan for salvation. The ego's plan is to make the clouds, to make the distractions, it's time and space. It makes it, real so that we cannot see the light that is beyond the clouds. Simple, to remember that when we see the clouds in the sky, which are out there for me today, behind those clouds is the sun. Behind the clouds that we create in our own life is the light. We just need to remove the clouds. And God's plan helps us to move past the clouds to see the truth. And nothing has changed from God's creation. That is what is real. What is real is love. What is real is peace. What is real is joy. What is real is happiness. No world of separation could ever have this happen. In this world, if we look outside and what we projected, what we have, brought forward in our lives is the separation. So changing our outer picture will still hold a thought of separation. Of separation cannot work. Again, I'm going to read that because I wrote it out here, but I'm even myself as I'm rereading it. Changing our outer picture will still hold a thought of separation. Cannot work. So it says, letting go again of all our false ideas brings us to the truth, brings deeper peace, and brings happiness that will never end. That's what we are moving forward and towards as we are choosing healing ourselves inwardly. All right, that's today's lesson. I went off on quite a little bit of information there today, but that's what I allowed Spirit to move through. And to allow Spirit to move through you today, and remember that only God's plan for salvation will work. Thank you for being here. Again, please like, comment, share, and also subscribe if you haven't already. I look forward to being with you for the next lesson, lesson 72. Have a love-filled day. Bye for now.